My name is Ann Sermons Gillis, and I want to welcome you today to the Theosophical Order of Service legacy interview that I have with one of our past presidents. I know this is going to be very exciting, and I can't wait for you to meet her. She was with the Theosophical Order of Service for 25 years, and she was also national president of the Theosophical Society for how many years?
9 years.
9 years. So I want to welcome Betty Bland. Betty,
Hello.
hey, I just wonder, I was going to ask you where you're born, but just where do you live now for people that might not know, and how long have you lived there?
I live in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I have lived here for 11 years.
11 years, oh my gosh, so not that long.
Since I retired from being president, yes.
So before you were there, you were in Wheaton.
Correct.
Okay, and then before that, were you in Virginia?
Well, before that, I was in Pennsylvania, Alabama, Kentucky, a little bit in North Carolina, Michigan. I think that's all.
So all of that exposure to the North, you still kept your Southern accent.
I could not lose it no matter how much my daughter mocked me.
I know. I've been born in the South and always lived in the South. I have that same situation. So where were you born?
Richmond, Virginia, the capital of the South, the Confederacy. And I certainly grew up in a very, I guess you would say, a redneck environment, and so I accepted that for a while, but I definitely grew out of it, and now I just cannot believe the things that I accepted as just the way things are, like bus segregation and school segregation and all the rest of it.
Prejudice, it was quite sad what we have gone through and what we continue to go through in many places and spaces around the continent and in the United States.
Terrible.
And in terms of your religion, were you raised in the Christian religion like most of us in the South? Was that your background?
I grew up in the Methodist Church, and yeah, was very active in the church, and people may not know this. Some people do who know David, but I ended up marrying a Southern Baptist preacher.
Oh, wow.
But
so David is a Southern Baptist minister. Okay.
But he saw the light.
Was that after he met you or before?
Yeah, he decided to go into ministry soon after he met me.
Into the Southern Baptist ministry?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, you've been around, huh?
Yeah, but it definitely, the seminary he went to was not a conservative seminary. Now it has been
changed,
in my opinion, totally changed in a conservative way that I wouldn't agree with.
Well, did your parents' spirituality influence you at all? Do you feel like they had something special, or do you feel like they were more like just go to church, Sunday Christians? They didn't have the heart in it. They were, there because it was the tradition in the South to go.
Well, they were very active in the church. But they didn't really talk about religion in it, and religion wasn't a lot at home. But my mother taught Sunday school and was always very active in the church.
So it seems like they may have influenced you because you're very active in organizations as well. They set the stage for you, seeing what it was like for somebody to be involved in the community, and you have kept that involvement.
I definitely have. My mother was always way involved beyond what she could handle, and I think I've taken that from her.
Well, did they allow you to question spiritual dogma, spiritual beliefs, or did you ever even have any conversations about that?
Actually, in our church, it was very open-minded, and I did not feel indoctrinated at all.
That's beautiful. Neither did I. We were fortunate. We escaped it, the spiritual prison that so many people are indoctrinated into. So tell us about a little bit about your growing up, I mean, your careers, just briefly, that background.
Well, I came home from the hospital.
Schooling.
Yeah, I came home from the hospital to a house, and that's the house I lived in until I left for college. And it was, you know, I was very happy and happy-go-lucky sort of person. The world was my oyster, and went to college and in North Carolina, UNC at Greensboro.
Okay.
And I finished school in 3 years because I was very anxious to get married. David and I were dating at the time. So, and we've been together now, married for 61 years. So that's pretty good.
Congratulations. That's great. That's amazing. Well, so you went on and had a career for a while, or you had a family first and then a career. How did that go?
Family, and then I was a systems analyst in Kentucky. I enjoyed that. I like problem solving. And then when we moved to Alabama, we had a house that was real unusual, so I had a bed and breakfast there.
Wow. Very neat. And was it from Alabama that you moved into being the president? Moved up to Wheaton from that?
Then I went to Pennsylvania, and then from Pennsylvania to being at Wheaton. In Pennsylvania, we lived near Scranton in the Pocono Mountains, and we averaged 125 inches of snow a year.
Oh, goodness. Well, you could make a lot of snow cream with that. Being from the South, I know you know what snow cream is.
Oh, yes, but you could shovel a lot too.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, absolutely. Well, let's get to the good stuff. The good stuff. I want to know about your spiritual life. You know, how did that start? When did you get involved in Theosophy? Just give us the scoop.
Okay, well, many people that know me know that my near-death experience was the thing that catapulted me into Theosophy.
Is that something you could tell us about? Would you be willing to let us know, give us the details on that?
I think there are some recordings, I think, available at Alcott, and there is also a written up version, and I'd be glad to send you the link to that. But
great, thank you. We'll put the link under the video.
Pretty involved. I don't think you want to get into it, but it was profound, and it totally changed my life. And it was so profound that I had to just explore what it meant and how it fit. And this was back in 1968, which was before even Raymond Moody wrote his book, Life After Life. So,
well, what were the circumstances? You said near death. Were you in a car accident? I mean, what happened?
It was a surgery that went awry. It was supposed to be a simple surgery, and I stayed in the hospital for a month.
Goodness. You were married at the time?
Yeah.
Okay. So that scared the bejeebers out of David, huh?
You are very right on that. You are right. But I started exploring, and one of the first books I ran into was Gina Sermonara's book, Many Mansions, which she was both a theosophist and an Edgar Cayce enthusiast. And so Many Mansions was about Edgar Cayce, but it was couched in terms of theosophical concepts. And when I read that book, it's like everything just clicked into place, just totally for me. And I got the big picture. And from then on, I was exploring. And I followed different authors. I followed Gina Sermonara again, but those books weren't on, the later books weren't on course of what seemed to ring true to me. So I had a theosophical book, and that just really connected. And so I looked.
Do you remember what book that was? The theosophical book?
Oh, it was an Annie Besant book.
So the one on the spiritual life?
It might have been. I can't remember exactly, but it also framed the theosophical concept, and I knew that was right on the money. So I wrote to the Theosophical Society. In the back of the book, it said, that there was a society, and I wrote to the society and started corresponding. And Virginia Hanson was the Department of Education, head of Department of Education. And she was ever so patient with me and just a wonderful mentor, because she never gave me answers, but she sort of said, well, you can explore these kinds of things and see how you relate to that. And she would refer me to various books. And I lived in a little town in North Carolina, and there were absolutely no theosophists and no libraries. And it was a godsend to be able to write to the library and ask them for anything, and then get the book in the mail.
So for those of you that do not know, that all members of the Theosophical Society have access to the National Library at Olcott Library, and we can take books out of that, and they will mail them to us, and then we mail them back. It's not as necessary now that we can get PDFs and order books online and so forth, but it's still a great service. There are hundreds of books, if not thousands.
It is wonderful. And actually, at that time, I wasn't even a member. I was just writing and asking questions. And I joined the library for some nominal fee. And very soon thereafter, however, I joined. I joined in 1970, the spring of 1970.
So how long were you practicing opening your mind and opening to these concepts before you actually were able to join in community and with people? Like maybe how did that occur? Did you go to conferences? Did you start a study group? What did you do?
Well, I did start a study group, actually, that started sharing with a few people what I was interested in. But I was basically on my own. I was the one always leading and looking myself. And actually, we moved to Michigan soon thereafter, and I looked on the map in Michigan, and we were in Lansing, and looked to see how close it was to Wheaton. And I made sure that I got to the summer conference, the first chance I got, my first summer there in Michigan. And I did not miss another summer conference to this day.
I remember my first summer conference. There's something pretty amazing about the conferences, and especially the first one, because it's like, oh my gosh, look at all this and all these people that think like I do and all these resources. It's amazing. So I go as often as I can, and certainly would invite anyone to come. I hope that we'll be in person soon. I don't think this year though. Is that correct? You know,
It's not going to be in person this year. Right.
We're still in the pandemic.
Right.
And
to walk into the national headquarters, and that is such an amazing entrance, and somehow it's just like going home.
That's how I felt.
I knew I had arrived, and I've been, I've just felt connected ever since, and have gone to as many conferences and whatever as I could all through the years.
So some say that the Theosophists join together lifetime after lifetime, and we find each other, and when we see each other, we feel like family. And that's certainly how I felt when I went to that first convention. It's like, oh my gosh, it's my family.
I did too. And to this day, I mean, the people I met that first year were just so incredibly important to me all through the time.
And so have you kept up with, over the years, do you keep in touch with the different people? Is that part of how you keep this alive?
Yeah. Yes. I'm not a great communicator because I stay really busy, but the minute we see each other, we are connected.
It's like forever. Well, were there any, I guess so, Annie Besant and a lot of the spiritual leaders, the early leaders influenced you. Were there any people that maybe mentored you in the Theosophical Society that were living mentors that you might mention? I think you did mention one. Was it Virginia Hansen?
Yes. Oh, she was incredible. And Joy Mills.
And Joy Mills.
And Dora Kuntz was just incredibly important to me. Beverly McNeese, who was a worker in the society in the 70s, came to our little town because she was in that area, and I met her. And after talking with her, she suggested that, I think it was in 77, that Dora Kuntz was having therapeutic touch healing workshops in Pumpkin Hollow. And
what year did you say that was?
1977.
Okay.
And she had just started working with Dee Krieger on training nurses and doctors in therapeutic touch. And it was an incredible experience for me, and I knew that I had to go. It was that summer, and we were going to be moving up to Michigan in August, and I just I took the children to my mother's, and I took off for New York. And it was a magical experience and just profound, and made lifetime friends. And then, Dora and I, she's like me, she didn't communicate. In fact, if she talked on the telephone, she would, after she had finished saying whatever she was going to say, she just hung up. She didn't say goodbye or anything.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
But she was very important, and her teachings are very important. And, I think her book on the personal aura is incredibly profound and reflects a lot that she taught.
Well, just for people that may not know, Dora Kuntz was a great healer. She was also an author, and she was also the president of the Theosophical Society, the national president. I envy that you were able to spend time with her. She had passed on when I joined. However, at about the same time you did, a group of us had gotten the book, Therapeutic Touch, and we formed a circle of about 20 people, and we had healers that were trained by, I can't remember what that Methodist woman's, but we looked at all the healers, but we were using that book, and that had a profound effect. We went through the book and did all the exercises, and it was a profound thing. When my friend told me we're going to do a healing circle and we're going to learn to do hands-on healing with people, I went, oh my gosh, what are we doing? We're going evangelical or something. And she says, no, this is not that. And it was just wonderful. So we have that love of therapeutic touch in common.
Well, Dora was so helpful because she could see what you were doing. So it's like getting biofeedback.
Wonderful.
She could, give you direction when you're not doing it right. And she could give you suggestions.
Well, it's a great blessing to be able to be around those teachers like Dora Kuntz and Joy Mills, and I'm so glad that you were. I only was able to meet Joy Mills. I never, studied with her, but we do have the books, and there is a wonderful blessing in those books as well. There's an energy, I think, that comes from them, and we're already in this collective community of seekers and finders, and I think that gives us a little bit of a jump intuitively so that we can find the material that we need when we're ready for it, when we need it.
Yeah. And when when I joined, Joy Mills was president of the Theosophical Society.
Okay.
And when she decided to, she went to Australia to be the president of the Australian section. When she decided to leave for that reason, for a period of time, I thought, oh no, what is the Theosophical Society going to do without Joy Mills? But we have a lot of good leaders. So there's the person comes that's needed to be there.
Oh, yes. And we've had so many wonderful people come, those in the past. And to me, as I study some of those older teachers, I feel like they come alive. They really have a living presence, and they can keep teaching even if they don't have physical bodies. So one of the cornerstones, of course, of Theosophy is service. And I know that you were, I guess, in the TOS for 25 years. And what did you do? Tell me about service, being with the TOS, and then what you have considered service in your life and how you live that service and that principle of Theosophy in your own life.
Okay, well, I always felt like the Theosophical Order of Service was very important, and I started being involved with it when Jean and Joe Gullo were. It was just more like a mom and pop operation. And
what does that mean? It means were there a few members? And of course, that was a long time ago. We didn't have all the internet and everything at that time.
Yeah, they really didn't have a concept as to what to do and how to do it. And so they divided it up into several departments, like the Department of Family and Animal Welfare and environment, things like that. And and peace, and they just asked one person to write a news article about that issue. Maybe once a quarter, I think it was. And she would put together then a newsletter.
And I guess it was a hard copy. You didn't have the internet, so you mailed it, yes.
And that was all that it was.
What years are we talking about?
We're talking about from the 80s on.
Okay.
And I forget, can't remember the man's name right now. Oh, shame on me. But he kept they tried publishing some things, and they ended up being stuck with a lot of books oriented towards service. And he stored them in his garage, and we were always trying to sell those books.
Was that one of the ones that had the healing? There's a book that has a lot of stuff about healing in it.
I think so. I think so.
I think I have one of those books. Yeah,
Yeah.
they can't give them away.
One on parenting. But so, I mean, that was all that it was basically, I'd say half a dozen people each who had agreed to do something about that area and then write a newsletter about it. And there was no other thing. And then we would ask for donations. And so it was really hard from that point to start moving into a full-bodied organization with structured bylaws and with term limits and
Officers
and so forth, because they were the perennial officers. And I really stayed in the background. I never was president, although I was asked to be president several times. I stayed in the background, but I was always trying to shepherd it into being what it could be. And I'm really proud of how it's doing now. And of course, the internet helps.
Right. So you got, is it a 501c3? Did you get a 501c3? Yeah. And you got, so you got incorporated bylaws. You started having presidents and continued to do a newsletter. And then I'm assuming maybe started developing service projects rather than bigger than just the newsletter.
Right.
What were some of the kinds of things you did? Do you remember what kind of projects? Did you do national versus projects in the lodge?
It's very hard to figure out how to make a national project, because everybody's in different directions and so forth. And so I took the area of peace, and we had a particular little meditation for peace that we did, and we had peace circles so that we would get 3 to 5 people who would communicate with each other and be a circle of peace meditators. And
so were these in the different lodges? You had this going out in the different lodges, was that it?
Yeah. And to members. And then if we had part in the newsletter with that, but that was one structure we tried to make reverberate out. It's very hard until you have internet and that kind of thing. And it's still hard for lodges. They'll take one project, but it's hard for them to feel like they're a part of a real service organization, I think.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, I think so. We have had, when I was in the Houston Lodge, and we had a separate liaison for the TOS, and we did things like work at the food bank and hand out packages to homeless people, or that's not the word we're supposed to use. What is homeless? People that don't live in homes anyway. And we did several projects like that. I know that also, was it during your time that they moved into having enough money to begin to give different organizations help and scholarships and so forth?
Yes, that was also something that I really paid attention to and wanted to be sure we were on sound basis, because somebody left us before then. We didn't have any money, and then somebody left nice size legacy. And so then to figure out what was the most responsible way to use that and so forth. And I'm the one that got us to having the Study Center Liaison so that it would put it out into the various lodges.
And that was wonderful. Zorine Belisar, I think, was our representative at one point. And of course, now that's been very difficult with the pandemic. We haven't had meetings, and that idea has fallen apart. And we hope that we can get things going again. Hopefully, we'll get clear of this pandemic, as somebody called it.
Pandemic, I like that.
So obviously you have performed a lot of service just in the TOS itself, and it sounds like you have a lot of service. You were telling me that you had just organized a retreat for your church.
Yeah.
Service work. So you're like your mama. You do
I do backpack buddies. I've worked on habitat houses. I was quite involved with Reverend Barber's Poor People's Campaign, and worked with him very closely. And one of the things I really like about him, people may or may not be aware, but he has always been a positive advocate for what needs to be done, and never criticizing or hate or angry, but pushing for the positive. And I think that is so important. I mean, it's great to be an activist, but you have to be an activist with love in your heart.
That's beautiful. Yeah, he is an amazing person. We are better off for having him on the planet. And that is, this we they mentality is something that, we've been trying to work on that in Theosophy for so long. We're a universal brotherhood, and now we can say we're a universal sisterhood as well. And that means that there's one family, the human family, we all belong together. And so it's wonderful. I think that it's the Theosophical Society that this is our belief as well. And we, continue to teach that. So I'm so glad. And so other things that you might want to mention in terms of service.
Well, I was arrested and booked, and I have a criminal record now for participating in protest marches, but
more than once or just once?
Just once.
And what were you? Do you remember the protest? What you were protesting on that particular?
Yeah, this was with Reverend Barber's Moral Mondays. We had those, and as I say, it was on a positive note. But for health care for poorer people, North Carolina has not expanded Medicaid in a way that would really help many people, and
true in many southern states.
Yes, and to really work towards having affordable housing and better wages, that kind of thing.
Well, thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. We're all needed to try to right the injustices. There's so many, absolutely so many. What aspects of Theosophy do you think have most influenced your life? Is there any one thing that kind of turned you towards your beliefs and studies in Theosophy, a principle?
Well, I would say, they're really the basic principles of Theosophy. The holistic scheme of recognizing that we're all part of the greater whole, and that we're responsible within that greater whole, and that this is not just a one-term assignment, but that we have many lifetimes to go through in the process, and that what we don't get right this time around, we can come around and learn it again. So just the idea of reincarnation, karma makes so much sense. I mean, it's not a simplistic view of karma, but just the fact that we will all be in the same shoes at one time or another, which gives one a great deal of compassion and understanding for everybody. So we're all in this same cosmic soup together and working towards relationship and unity.
Thank you. It's like, yes, life is a revolving door. We're out and back in, out and back in. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. You are now the leader. I mean, are you called, is it in Raleigh? Is this a study group or is it a lodge?
It's a study center.
A study center. So you're in charge of that. And how long have you been doing that?
Since I moved here.
Did you found it?
Yeah.
So that was 11 years ago?
Yeah. Everywhere I have lived, there hasn't been a study center, and I have gotten one going.
Well, my gosh, thank you for doing that.
Oh, yeah. And and I would say the Zoom has sort of opened us up because we are a large spread out area and a 50-mile radius, and with being able to have it on Zoom, we have about 12 people every meeting.
Yeah, and we've got Cindy comes from, is she New Hampshire?
She's from New Hampshire. Yes.
And I come from Charleston.
Yeah.
So we can have people from all around, and we certainly do appreciate that. Do you think, since you formed these, do you think that being able to participate in a study group or a lodge really enhances our lives?
I definitely do. Just to be able to be with people of like mind and, know that we're not crazy. And to have to actually verbalize what we think is it solidifies our own thinking, I believe.
Yes. Well, one of the more controversial topics, and I say controversial because it's out of the realm of what our normal senses see, is this aspect of the masters and theosophy. And I'm just wondering, what is your take on the masters? And I know that I'm just bringing this up out of the blue, so this is a surprise question. What is your take on the masters, and do they have anything to say for us today? And if so, how would we access that information? Or you don't even have to answer it.
No, the idea of the masters from the very beginning has been very inspirational for me. And it only makes sense if we are humanity evolving and unfolding. Surely, I mean, we poor, lost, orphan humanity, there are some who have gone further than we have gone.
Thank God, huh?
Yes. And so the concept itself is really wonderful. And then knowing that particularly two of these individuals took enough interest and concern and felt like the time was right to reveal themselves in the world and to bring about in whatever form they could the Theosophical Society, which has made this information available and helped us to connect, trying to be a part of that spiritual wall of protection for humanity. And I really have a deep appreciation for them. I do not personally know whether they are incarnate now or not. Excuse me, David is going to be running by. But I know that in whatever way, their presence is still available and their teachings are available. And I think they do not want us to focus on themselves as individuals, but as guardians for humanity and servants for humanity. And so I see evidence of masters in today's world and in history. I mean, I think that the Dalai Lama is certainly in that category. And there have been others. So I don't define it that it's just got to be the two Mahatmas that brought Theosophy to HPB that worked with her, but it is a profound brotherhood, sisterhood of high spiritual beings. And if we tune into our higher self, we tune into the atmosphere that they are in, and I think we can get guidance. And the more we meditate and the more we get in touch with that, the more we resonate with it.
Yeah, I think the masters have said about the infinite information and the secrets of the universe. They've said it's not that we're trying to hide them, it's just that we're keeping them in a safe place. And we can gain entry into that. The key to that is through our intuition. And so it's so very important for us to develop our intuition. Have you done anything to develop your intuition? Are you naturally intuitive? Are you blank? You're not intuitive? Give me your take on intuition and your own personal experience.
Well, I think I was avoiding intuition until I had my near-death experience. And that threw me into a sense of just feeling connected with that inner life. And meditation just keeps connecting with that. So, you know, I don't have any clairvoyance, but I certainly feel like I connect with an intuitive inner life.
Do you use that in your day-to-day business? I mean, as you go about your days, do you use your intuition?
Yeah, always. I mean, when tough things hit, that's the first thing I reach for. And
do you have a process? I mean, do you ask a question or you just get still and listen? How do you work with that?
I tend to not ask a question. I tend to hold the issue open-ended. Maybe I don't even know how to ask a question.
Sounds like you shined the light on it. You're holding it up with the light on it. You can see a lot more when the light's on.
But yeah, so I just hold that open, and something will unfold. I have great trust in the process.
Thank you. Are there any, you had mentioned a couple of books, are there any books that you would recommend to someone who is on this path or starting on this path anew?
Well, starting on the path, I really like Ed Abdul's book, The Secret Gateway. I think that's a really good overview and, you know, pretty well covers things. otherwise, I have read so many things. It depends on how deep one wants to go in what direction. I also, the first 2 years that I was in the society, I had the little book At the Feet of the Master. And for beginning, that was really a crucial meditation book for me, because for the first 2 years, I would just meditate on little aspects of it, go through it, and then start over. And as I was trying to reframe my life in a full spiritual way.
A really good book that teaches us, it's a manifesto for being a good human being.
Yeah,
Be kind, compassionate, honest, all of those things.
Right. It's a book,
virtues.
Ethic, very much so. And then, of course, Voice of the Silence goes much deeper, which is very good. And all the books. John Aljo, I didn't mention John Aljo, but he was also certainly a mentor to me. And he really did some good writings and good lectures and so forth.
Yeah, he does have a great beginning book, but I don't remember the name of it on Theosophy. I guess it's,
yeah.
I don't remember that. Well, are there any, in closing, is there anything else that you might share with us? And if you can't think of anything off the bat, I wonder if there's any kind of advice that you would like to pass on to future generations.
I don't think of anything in closing particularly. As far as advice is concerned, I really think the paramitas in the Voice of the Silence are good advice. Certainly, patience and determination balance each other. So to be patient with yourself and with life, and yet always moving with determination. And the charity, the good heart, and not taking things personally is incredibly important, because that's ego to begin with, and that's the thing we're trying to move away from, or beyond, I would say.
Absolutely. It does form a protection around us. Yeah, taking things personally, we can move from being reactors to being actors. We're really at choice when we don't take things personally. And that is such good information and advice. Thank you so much. I do appreciate this. Again, the interview with Betty Bland, the past president of the Theosophical Society, longtime activist in the Theosophical Order of Service, and absolutely gracious human being. Thank you so much, Betty.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Thank you.